You're listening to Infinite TBR, the podcast where we try not to buy more books. I'm Smack.
And I'm Gabi. Spoiler alert! We're going to avoid major spoilers, and when we can, warn when we're going to discuss a particular book in detail so you can avoid that part of the episode. You can also check the show notes for time-stamped flags identifying potential spoilers.
So, Smack and I recently went on a reading retreat.
Our second annual.
Yes, which apparently is a novel concept for some people.
Are you proud of yourself?
Yes.
Okay, good.
On accident.
So a reading retreat is exactly what it sounds like. We booked a room at this... We're not going to get anywhere. Okay, so we booked a room at this cute little, I'm pretty sure it was a mansion cabin. It's a very large cabin.
Very large lodge.
Lodge, that's a better word for it. It's not a cabin.
Aesthetically a lodge.
Yes. And it's now 6 rooms with
something like that.
Something like that. It's this adorable little place in the mountains outside of Julian, which is a big tourist town in the eastern part of San Diego County.
Known for their apples.
Apple pie.
Apple pie, specifically.
Yeah. Yes. Now they have cider places, too.
Yeah.
Which we didn't hit up, but we will next time.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so cider's more exciting and it's not rainy and cold.
It's not miserably cold. So it rained the whole time we were there, but a reading retreat is where you go away for a weekend and then you just do nothing but read.
So it was perfect.
It was great. And we planned ahead. I planned a little ahead on the food.
Yeah.
Because I knew they had a kitchen this time.
Yes.
And I had a bunch of leftovers from the week before. So we didn't leave the place once. It was beautiful. Awesome. And that second night we were there, it was just us in this giant place. So we took over all the couches and the blankets and we had the fireplace going. It was amazing.
It was so great. We have to do it every year. We must.
Well, now it's a tradition.
Yes.
So. Pretty sure it happened this year though, because I had points.
I think that's what happened last year too. I think so. So this year I assumed oh, she's just gonna have points every year. This is great. And then you were like, no, we have to pay full price next time. And I'm like, well then maybe we should invite our #1 fan Laura to come with us next year to defray the cost.
So it was wonderful.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, pick somewhere cute.
Yeah.
Somewhere where you go visit and you're like, well, I wish I could spend more time in the place we're staying, but we're going out and sightseeing and blah, blah, blah. So do that, but don't go sightsee.
Or pick a place that, you don't care about going out anywhere. And you're just there to stay in a cute place.
Yes. It was great.
Yeah.
And then we got back to San Diego to find out that the constant lovely rain that we'd been listening to as we read
San Diego underwater.
Had flooded. People lost their homes.
Yeah.
I was getting texts from coworkers on the way back being like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah.
We're fine. On the way back from your place, the exit off of the 163 Genesee exit was just underwater.
Oh my god.
And the cars had they hadn't backed up on the highway yet, but cars were just stuck on that exit lane because they couldn't go anywhere.
Oh my god. Do you know, somebody once told me that if you can see the water moving, it's too fast to drive through.
I mean,
anything deep to drive through.
Unless you know how deep.
Exactly.
Don't drive your car through it.
Yes. But this is San Diego, so nobody knows how to drive out.
Nobody knows the flash flood rules.
Yeah, we should. It's San Diego, but we do not.
Nope.
It's not one of those things.
And our infrastructure is
it's not built for rain. We get half an inch of rain and everything stops.
Yep.
Crashes all over the freeways. Just anyway.
And the lines on the road disappear. You can't tell whether you're in your lane or not.
The lines in our neighborhood, we have so many reflectors going.
Yeah, you have brand new ones.
It's a disaster.
Is it?
Yeah, because then you get the headlights, you get the reflection from the headlights, then you get the
that's
reflectors
a
between the lanes.
Problem.
And then you get the reflectors that divide the lanes from the bike lane. And then you get the reflection of the reflectors. They're just lights everywhere.
Too much.
Too much.
We have the opposite problem in the Midway district, especially, is very bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't. Very bad. Midway's rough anyway.
Yeah. There was one time I was driving home in the rain, and there's a part where it peels off onto Midway if you're coming from the east.
Yeah.
but like it grows like one of those medians. You know how like sometimes they do that and then there's like sort of a median between the right turn lane, right curve lane, and then like everyone else going straight.
Yeah.
And I almost like barreled right into that median because I couldn't see
Oh my god,
the
Gabi.
freaking lines on the road to see where and it was nighttime in the
Oh
rain
my
and you just
God.
couldn't see.
Gabi. Well, anyway, she has to go home before the rain starts tonight.
Well, now I know where for that
Now you know where the lines
specifically.
are?
I've driven home from your place enough that like I could probably get home with my eyes closed, but I will not test that
Yeah, maybe not.
theory.
Not when you're behind the wheel.
No.
So
Anyway, at our reading retreat,
yes.
we read books.
We read. Gabi just kept pulling out book after and like they were like small, but like she just flew through these things.
Yeah, I read 2 of my Josh Lanyon Secrets and Scrabbles cozy mystery, just cute nonsense.
That's the one where he's like a bookstore owner in like this pirate town or like former Smuggler's Cove or something.
It's very Murder, She Wrote vibe, so very like East Coast little town. And their whole thing is our history is all pirates and pirate hunters and stuff.
Freaking adorable.
And he like inherits this huge estate from his like great aunt or whatever and her mystery bookshop. And then he gets
specifically a mystery
bookshop.
Specifically
A mystery bookshop. And then gets pulled into all of these murder mysteries. Even though he doesn't really want to. But then he gets this reputation after the first few books of being an amateur detective against his will. And he's
so
like,
now people like seek him out?
Yes.
Excellent.
And he's like developing this relationship with the police chief in the town, who obviously feels a way about the fact that he keeps getting involved as an amateur sleuth in all these murder cases. Anyway, they're adorable. And yeah, so it was those. And now I'm all caught up on the ones that are released. And the last, I don't know if it's going to be the last one, but the next one anyway was supposed to come out last summer. And there like hasn't been any word about it.
Oh no!
And I'm really stressed about it. But
they're indie published, right?
I think so, yeah. But the last one ended on like such a cute note that if it never came out, it would like be okay. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Like not okay, but okay.
Yeah. Like emotionally satisfying enough that I'd be like, okay. Certainly better than some of the other ones where they end things a little bit more like tense.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
But mostly they stand alone other than the ongoing relationship development.
Right.
Thing. So yeah. So I read those. And what was my other cutesy one?
The Griffin.
Oh yeah, How Not to Date a Griffin, which is the 3rd in that How Not to Date series by Lana Cole with a K, I think.
Cole with a K.
Yeah. K-O-L-E. Seems unusual to me.
A little unusual. It's probably a pseudonym, but...
Oh, well, yeah, maybe. But of the 3, I think that was actually my favorite.
The Griffin one?
Yeah.
What were the other 2?
The first one is How Not to Date a Demon. And that one was very cute, mostly because there's like a Cerberus puppy. It's like 3 puppies.
Yes!
And that one is like, she's dating this guy. The pitch sounds like it's gonna, the summary, the blurb on the back, sounds like it's gonna be very frustrating and annoying because it pitches it as like, oh, her boyfriend doesn't do the chores, leaves his dirty laundry everywhere, and now he's, like, having weird rituals in the living room in the middle of the night. Like, what's up with my boyfriend kind of thing? So I thought it was going to be this, like, deadbeat boyfriend angle, but also he's a demon. But they actually have a really good, productive conversation about, like, we both have to contribute. Yeah. So it's actually a very minor thing. And then it becomes way more about the weird...
It sounds sort of delightful.
And it was she has like a list of like ruling out what her boyfriend might be. So
like
she keeps,
creatures he could be.
And so she's like iteratively goes through this list. It's very scientific. And she's
adorable.
Like, I'm gonna slip him. Like I think she like makes a dish full of garlic or something. Like something so full of salt. Something that made it like taste terrible. And he very like bravely went through the whole thing and was like, this is good, honey. And she's like, so he's not this. I know this is terrible, but if he was this, he would have died. And he didn't die and he seems fine, so he's not this. Wears like silvery jewelry or something.
So he's not a werewolf. He's not a vampire.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that was very charming and fun to watch her like go through this list, and he's like, this is weird, but okay.
How did she figure it out?
She, at one point, he disappears in the middle of the night, and she's like, surely he wouldn't be cheating on me.
Okay.
It's one of those things like, this is like the only explanation left, but it doesn't make any sense. So she follows him wherever he's going in the middle of the night. And then he like sprouts wings and disappears. And she like runs home and like packs a bag. I guess this is probably spoilers kind of, but she packs a bag and she's already leave, but he comes home before she can actually like leave the apartment.
To like run away or to rescue him?
Like to run away.
To run away.
And then they have like this sort of standoff where he's like, I'm not gonna hurt you, I swear. And she's like, that's what an evil demon would say. So that one was kind of fun.
Delightful.
The second one was How Not to Date a Dragon. And that one was a little bit more... I thought that one would be my favorite because the dynamic is like a sort of like dragon horde finder / dragon hunter kind of, and a dragon. And this person shows up, claps this dragon in handcuffs and is like, tell me where your horde is. And the dragon is like, you're attractive. And they're like, enough with this nonsense, tell me where your horde is. And the dragon's like, no, you're cute. And I thought it would be...
That's so cute.
I thought it would be cute, but at the beginning, it's kind of weird because the dynamic is very, I'm, like, you're not a person. Like, I'm here, you know, like, you're a creature, I want your stuff.
Right.
And, like, that's
and
not
I'm
a dynamic.
To
yeah. And, like, is, like, part of this tradition of killing dragons.
What?
Because they're, like, dragon slayers, you know?
Okay.
So I was like, you're...
Not just horde hunters.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, meh about it. And then, like, partway through, it kind of does this, like, weird sort of retconning thing where it turns out that they've been pretending to kill dragons. They make deals with dragons. They're like, if you pretend to die... and I take some of your horde, like you can keep half of your horde, I'll take half, and then I'll get the dragon slayers off your back.
It's like a protection racket.
Yeah, it's basically a protection racket. So it's this whole, like, oh, they're really a good person thing.
Yeah.
But the dynamic before that is very, like, I'm still attracted to you, even though I think you want to actually murder me and take my stuff. And I was like, not on that. And then there was this weird side quest they did for some witches, and I would have almost been about that, except it was really random, and they don't have their own book. If they had their own book, and then this was like a flashback to... because it was like getting something back from one of her exes. And I was like, if they had a book before this... and then we meet them again, and they're like, in exchange for our help, you have to go get this thing back from my ex that showed up in the previous book. That would have been fun. I would have been more about that. But that ended up just being kind of random. And then there was this whole, like, really traumatic, abusive family situation that the dragon hunter is in with their actual family. Got rid of them because they're non-binary. And they got picked up by this dragon slayer community and was all like, oh, I have a family now and they don't care that I'm non-binary. All they care is that I joined this cult of dragon slayers.
Okay.
So that got really stressful. So it was...
Toxic found family is the worst found family.
Yes.
By far.
And I don't think I've encountered that before. Because there's toxic family. I don't know that I've run into toxic found family so much.
I think the closest I've come is that The Light in the Stars, that Ryoka Aoki book.
Yeah, Light from Uncommon Stars.
Light from Uncommon Stars, where the violinist is a trans girl, runs away from home, and ends up staying with an internet friend who ends up to be like, super abusive, rapey, horrible.
Forgot about that.
I have not. That was
very bad.
Quite affecting.
Short. But yes,
But then
very
she went to
affecting.
go live with a demon.
Yeah.
So it was fine.
Yay!
Who was very
Queen of Hell.
proud of her. Yeah.
You're a good bean, just play violin for me.
Yeah. So, anyway.
But the Griffin one was kind of almost You've Got Mail, like minus the actual mailing back and forth.
Right, you said it was like Uber, but like not cars?
Yeah.
It was like you ride a Griffin?
Yeah, the main character is trying to get a ride share to go to this business dinner with his terrible father and his terrible business associates.
Oh, great.
And so he has the rideshare app up, and he's just like, oh, a Griffin. That sounds funny. I wonder. And then, like, after he's already ordered, he's like, surely it's not a real Griffin. And this real Griffin just shows up and is like, you may ride me now. And he's like, well, I guess I'm married to this decision.
Are these smutty books?
Oh, yes. I guess I
Ride Me
should
Now?
make that clear. These are extremely smutty books.
Okay, that would have been less funny if they weren't smutty.
Sure.
You may ride me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't think they actually say that, but that is
Right.
pretty much
But
the vibe.
There's a reason I laughed.
So then he takes him to this dinner, but then he goes to the dinner and he thinks he's late and he's going to get an earful from his father. He lands, gets a text from the coworkers saying, oh, we actually canceled the dinner. You can, like, just the night is yours. And he's like, cool, I came all the way out here for no reason. Now what do I do?
Nothing.
And looks through the window of the restaurant and they're all there, like, having dinner. Crappy father.
No.
Crappy it's not good. So
Oh god.
so then
that's
he's like,
worse.
well, this sucks. And he's just trying to, like, kind of kill time until the Griffin goes so he can decide, like, how to get back to the hotel. But the Griffin's like, aren't you gonna go in? And the guy's like, no.
Oh no.
And so the Griffin basically takes him out on, like, a night on the town thing and shows him
that's
all his
nice.
favorite hot spots and whatever. And then, like, they spend the night together and don't learn until the next day that the guy's father owns this hotel chain and they're basically coming in to destroy the local community so they can put in a new hotel. And the Griffin is kind of like one of, like, sort of a community leader-ish, but he's, like, heading this effort to, like, get
Of
the big
course,
hotel
yes.
people
Okay,
to
I see
go
that
away.
you've got mail.
Yes.
Okay.
But
I
obviously
do remember at some point you would, like, look up and go, why did he just tell him? And I thought, this is not my trope.
Well, actually, it wasn't, like, they find that out, like, relatively
Oh,
early.
do they?
And that's, like, mostly okay. They have a moment of, like, first it's like, LOL, this is very funny. But also, like, we probably shouldn't see each other because this is kind of, And the guy, the human is like, oh, that's a bummer. I actually really like this guy and I could see this being a really better week if I could hang out with him and not with my terrible father and their coworkers this whole week.
Terrible.
And it's not like he hates his job. He doesn't want to be there, but how do you, like, after you've been doing a thing for so long, how do you extract yourself, especially when you care about what your dad thinks of you kind of thing? And he's kind of, like, working himself up to quit, but it's been, like, a long kind of process.
Yeah.
So the Griffin, like, walks away, and then, like, it takes him a morning, and the Griffin talks to his best friend, who's a journalist, and basically talks the Griffin into going back and, like, spending time with the son so they can get a story on the dad. And the Griffin's like, that's super underhanded and shady, but also, like, my community is really important to me. And, like, it would be good to,
So
like,
that's
that's
the part you were
bigger.
freaking out
Yeah.
over. Okay.
And so and then he's like, I want to spend time with him anyway, and kind of uses it as an excuse to be like, I get to date this guy, and it's for
Good reasons.
good reasons.
Oh no.
And yeah, and then it kind of spirals.
That would
from
stress me out
there.
so
I know.
much.
But it was that was my favorite of the three. That was, but yeah, you saw me every few minutes. I'd be like,
That's
I'm
good
very
stress for you,
concerned. I mean, it's the type of book where, like, it can only go so bad.
but right. That's true.
Between the two of them.
That is a good point.
Everything bad is usually happening with other people, mostly
Okay.
family. I think the author perhaps has father issues.
Perhaps.
Or maybe that's just low-hanging fruit and fun to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, that one I would probably go out known. I don't know about the other two,
Oh really?
but I would reread that one. So yeah, and then I started called The Night Fast the Wolves by Meg Long, which ended up being...
Yes, I loaned her that one. I read that when I was in Oregon a year ago this month, and so it was very cold, and I was reading like in the
that's
dark.
why I picked it for January.
Yeah.
I was like, it's cold and rainy.
It was a good read for them.
The premise of that one is it's a very different world. It's like kind of an ice planet, and there's this annual... This is actually one of my beefs with it. World building is awesome, but there's a major flaw in that there's this annual sled race, kind of like the Iditarod, where they go from like the main city to these mines where this metal is extracted that's used in all their technology and stuff. But the weather's only good enough to even like maybe get there on this very dangerous sled race.
Maybe get
like
there.
that one time a year. And this kind of like down on her luck is a really...
She's been fucked over by
Yes.
everyone. By everyone.
Yes. She's not in a good place. Her mothers are both died in this race, so she's very like, I'm never going to be a racer.
She grew up in the racer culture.
Yes.
She knows all the things. She always assumed she'd become a racer, but then both of her mothers die in the race.
In the race.
And leave her with like an aunt who's not really
figure.
A relative.
Right.
Yeah.
So, who's like a mechanic, and it keeps trying to kind of like draw her back in and be like, her mothers would want this for you. And she's like, don't tell me what my mothers would want for me.
Yes.
They're dead.
There was a lot of abandoned child drama for like the first half.
Yes. So she kind of makes do by pickpocketing, but she kind of gets on the wrong side of this mob boss, basically, who gets her under his thumb and is like, heal my fighting wolf, and I'll look the other way on this other stuff.
They're not like our kind of wolves, they're like genetically enhanced wolves.
Yeah.
Who have been crossed with canines who could survive on that ice planet.
Right.
With the wolves that we would know in our world.
Right. And a lot of them are used to pull these sleds.
Right.
And other ones are used for like dogfighting rings, basically. Yeah. And his favorite one gets injured and is like, use your mother's fancy wolf techniques to...
It was, I mean, because one of the mothers is like...
natively coded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this, I mean, she's coded biracial, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because the one mother comes from this like native population that's very much stays out of this whole corporate
they don't live in
structure.
the city at all.
And there's this whole antagonistic relationship between the people who are part of the corporate structure, who are all like, they're scavers is what they call them. And they have a very isolationist, like, don't get involved with the corporate people things.
And by corporate, we mean everyone who lived as a colonist on this planet. Like, the whole thing is corporatized. There's the only reason this city exists is because corporate money keeps flowing in.
It would be like if Amazon had multi-planet
I mean,
overreach,
give it 100 years.
and was the government. Yeah. Basically, yep. Felt a little too real.
Treats everyone about as well as you'd expect.
Yep. So
crime flourishes. And this mob boss has a lot of money and a lot of power. But he is obsessed with one of her mother's, like, native healing abilities or whatever.
Doesn't want the genetic,
the
fancy genetic fixable thing because it will mess with her genetics
or something.
She must be pure or whatever.
Yeah,
dumb.
And by she, he means the wolf.
Yes, the wolf,
not the girl.
Yeah. So she's like, okay, I'll fix this wolf for you in 2 weeks, knowing full well that she can't fix this wolf in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then pisses him off even more. For some reason, this ends in jailbreaking the wolf. And they run off with a group of scientists who are part of this sled race, not to, like, make a whole lot of money. They just want to research this metal.
Yeah.
So they're part of the race, but not, like,
they're
for
not,
money reasons. So it's this...
But also, this wolf thing, they jailbreak together.
Yeah.
But, like, this wolf is a wild animal, and this girl knows like they don't exactly have like a detente. They are very much wary of each other, right? Like the way you should be of a wild animal,
Sure.
And or
And I thought that was done really well. It's not like,
ring fighting
she's now my
animal.
pet dog.
Yeah.
It's very, she's a wild animal. She doesn't trust her, and she used to be a fighting wolf.
Mm-hmm.
So
super dangerous.
So she's constantly worried this wolf is gonna
leap up and
attack someone when she least expects it. So it's really tense until they kind of like get to know each other, kind of, as much as you can get to know a wolf.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really well done. So she teams up with this group of scientists. It's an interesting batch of characters. That was another thing that was really well done, is lots of different characters and all really well characterized. So she ends up part of this race that she swore she would never be a part of. Right. And that it takes over half the book to get to the actual race.
I was really surprised by that. Yeah.
And like there's a lot that happens.
Because the back summary like bills it as about the race.
Yeah, I pretty much just said exactly what's on the back of the book, and that's over half.
Yeah, I remember being very like taken aback.
Yeah. So that was interesting. And then my big beef with that. So really well done, really well written, like hard to put down, constant, like there's always something high stakes going on, so you're really drawn in.
It is really well plotted.
Yeah, super well plotted. My only beef is that, and this may get into spoilers. If I get into spoilers, I'll put in a spoiler warning afterward. But it is possible to fly in to the place.
Because they have space travel.
Yes! Future Gabi here. Spoilers for Cold the Night, Fast the Wolves by Meg Long last until about the 27-minute and 30-second mark, so just under a minute and a half. So feel free to fast forward if you don't want that spoiled. And they drop, like, one of the mob boss ends, this is the spoiler, ends up at the end of the race, because he gets dropped there by a spaceship. And I'm like, you scientist people, you're not even in this race for the race reasons.
You flew onto the planet.
Have just been, and they have a ship scheduled to pick them up from the end of the race. So I'm like, there's no reason to not. So I don't. I was like, did I miss some explanation of why no one can do this? Because that seems like. And because the mob boss got dropped there, I'm like, it's clearly physically possible to be dropped. It was
supposed to be like super risky to do.
Yes. So they do say that like there are only certain windows when ships can get in and out.
Okay.
And because the storms mess with the electronics, it can be a little risky. But the sled race, the whole sled race, like people die. Most of their team dies. And I'm like,
and that's like not uncommon.
And if you have a ship programmed to pick you up at the end anyway, just have them drop you there to begin with. I don't.
This is amazing. I don't think I'd made that connection.
I wouldn't have if the mob boss weren't waiting for them at the end. I was like, how did you? Why couldn't we have done that? That seems very efficient. I don't. Anyway, that killed me. Other than that, it was great.
That is.
And I would read the sequel.
Yeah.
Because I love Remy.
Yeah. The sequel, the main character for the second book is like her friend from the first one.
Her genetically engineered friend.
Superpowered person friend.
Yay!
Which I quite liked.
Yeah.
I like that she's not really introduced or like you get to know her as a superpowered person. She just really likes chaos.
Yeah.
She just really likes to like screw shit up.
Yes. And they kind of get into like where they are is not really tailored for her powers, which to explain away that like why can't she do whatever.
Can't she just...
But yeah, I loved her like I'll plan it this time. Explosion here, explosion there, yay!
And the main character is just like,
well, this might
I guess she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
And then like these intricate like plots. Like someone who has clearly blown shit up before is in charge of this plan.
And it's worked the first 10 times, so we might as well keep doing it.
Yeah.
And their friendship was just really sweet to
Delightful.
see, but yeah.
She needed a friend.
Yes,
really
so badly.
Her only friend at the beginning is this guy who, like, wants to be her boyfriend.
Yeah, that she kind of keeps at arm's length. And I don't even think that he, like, explicitly pushes it.
No, he doesn't.
She just is very anti-having being close to people, and she doesn't want to get anyone else in trouble for being friends with her, and then they do all get in trouble for being friends with her, so then she feels bad about that, and she has a journey. Yep. I hope that he's happy. He did good.
He did do good. I hope he didn't die.
He pretty much saved their
I
lives.
know.
And it very much was like, you don't owe me anything for this.
Yeah.
I'm just
trying to do the right thing.
So yeah, really like not
And
usual.
I'm sure you all can hear, as usual,
Oh, yeah.
my dog is breathing very deeply. He's had a long day.
We were gone
I
for
know.
like a whole couple hours.
I know. It was like, I mean, it was like more than 2. It's been rainy, so we've been
Yeah.
together nonstop for a week.
And then suddenly we weren't.
And apparently he wailed for 20 minutes, which is not standard, but not surprising.
Oh dear.
Poor little guy.
Yeah.
So-
You guys are gonna have to get used to being apart when he's all healed up again.
I mean, not that much. I still
Right.
work from home.
Sure. But you'll probably go out more.
Yeah.
For little things. So what did you
so-
read during our reading retreat?
I read this book called Lent by Joe Walton. And the premise is that you're following around this, I think he's Dominican. It's a monk in Florence, right as Lorenzo the Magnificent dies, but he's a Medici. So it's Medici Florence, possibly Medici. I can never get a straight answer. And it reads like very straightforward historical fiction, except that he can banish demons.
For realsies.
For realsies, yeah. He really can. There are demons.
They're real.
Yeah.
And he can get rid of them.
And so he's known for being this exorcist demon banisher. So like at the beginning of the story, he gets called into this, I guess it's a nunnery, because they're being beset by demons and people are pinched, and like one woman got tossed down the stairs and almost died.
That's an
and-
escalation.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like
we can't sleep because we just are pinched
and
nonstop.
voices and screaming, and then one person almost dies. So like,
Correct.
okay, we need to
We expert.
yes. So he comes in with his 2 like closest, I want to call them followers, because there are politics in all of these like monasteries and stuff, and it's the Catholic Church, so of course there are politics. And
What?
I know.
Shocking.
And so he has a couple of people, I mean, like everybody knows and acknowledges that like he can indeed see and banish demons, but like he has some guys who are just like so platonically in love with him, just so admiring, sure he's gonna go to heaven the moment he dies,
Idol.
and they just want to ride on those coattails and be as holy as he is, and etc., etc. And so he goes through the nunnery, and he
So idol worship, even though you're not supposed to.
Oh, but it's,
That's a command.
I'm not gonna give you any spoilers.
Oh.
Okay, because it reads, except for this demon thing, it reads like straight historical fiction until the midpoint. At which point, I just about, like, I read the chapter at the midpoint, and then I went back.
I remember you got really confused.
I was very confused. And then I was just so fucking impressed. It was so well done.
Ooh.
It was so good. And it's this amazing play on words with Lent, the title.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I won't spoil it.
I know. And then your mom took it first, so I won't get to read it
Yes.
for a while.
Well, you weren't going to read it for a while anyway, right?
Depends.
Okay.
If you were like, read it so that we can talk about it. If you ever want me to prioritize a smack book, I will prioritize a smack book. I just thought you and Lauren were getting sick of me being like, someone pick which smack book I should read next.
I never get tired of telling which book people should read.
Okay, then I'll ask you guys again.
Okay.
But I wouldn't take that one to Kauai because it's
No.
in good condition.
That's true. It is in good condition. Definitely take all the
The ones
Anne
that are
Maguire
already
books.
secondhand.
Yes, they're so good.
And
They're
easy
so
because they're not hard
good.
to And
Have I
those are
talked
so
about
good.
those? I don't think I
I don't
have.
think. I think the first one has come up before with the pros, but you could give us another quick little.
Okay, so
Now that you've finished them,
they are the Dread Chronicles trilogy by Anne Maguire, and yes, this is a slight detour from Lent, but oh my god, those
You
ones
can't
are
say much more
so
about Lent.
good. That's true.
without spoiling.
Can I say anything more? Not really.
Okay, so Anne Maguire.
It's I can tell you what the themes are, and it's this,
You're doing so much gesturing with your very wet fingernails, and I can see you being like, can't touch.
I've
but-
been painting my nails while we're talking. I like to multitask. Also, I have this great new color. It's
Yay!
like orangey yellow sparkles.
What
Anyway,
was that one called?
it is called
We were enjoying the names.
Sundown Socialite.
That was not as fun as
That
the
one's
other
not
two.
as fun as the
Anyway.
other one. Anyway, I don't know anything about Catholicism. I know you were raised Catholic, so you know shit.
I sure do.
I don't know. And
I've tried really hard to forget a lot of it, but
my friend growing up was Catholic, and I went to mass with her once, and it was super boring, but she taught me how to cross myself, and that's about all I know.
I enjoy hearing people's experiences going to church once because it's so different than growing up going to church.
Yeah.
And you don't think of it like from the lens of it being a completely novel experience.
Yeah. Also,
until you have to take a friend.
Is it pews? They're pews where people sit.
Good job.
So I grew up Presbyterian, so they were just like chairs that you stack at the end of the service, I think.
Yeah.
This mass I went to had pews, and then there was this weird shit where your feet, I thought it was a footrest, but apparently it's where you're supposed to kneel. I want to clarify, I was like 8, okay?
Still, that's hilarious. It makes so much sense with zero context. It looks like a nice footrest.
And then I thought, people kneel during, like, do they tell you?
You just know.
Yeah. There's something, like, if you show up at a Catholic mass for the first time, there's all this call and response that there's no explanation. No. It's not written down anywhere. And
I have to say this because you'll enjoy this happening. There is a book I read a long time ago that was like a favorite of my dad's. It's like a fiction book about a spelling bee and these like kids who are amazing spellers or whatever. I remember there were some weird things in it, but the only thing I remember for sure about it, because it just made me laugh, it's bee season. Bee as in the animal.
Bee.
Oh, and spelling bee. Yeah, that makes it worse. By Mila Goldberg. And there's a scene, they're talking about when they were kids and they were going to church and they used to play a game that it was something like they called it the sheep game.
Okay.
And what they do is they would like kick the kneeling pew thing so that would come down and make the sound and they would shuffle their feet to make it sound like they were standing up. And then they'd wait and see how many other people would just stand because that's their like cue for standing. Oh and whoever could get more people to stand by making the noise wins.
That's an amazing game.
And I thought about that every time I went to church after forever.
For the rest of forever.
It's like that, and then you'd get like people who, at least the people who aren't used to the
right. Yeah. Anyway, it was an experience. And then I went to my friend's like Catholic wedding and realized, I don't know. They didn't even ask us to cross ourselves. That was the one thing I knew. How to cross yourself.
Right.
Anyway, I know nothing about Catholicism is the point of this.
Yes.
And
but still got a lot
the stuff
out of
that I do know is always like, oh, there's feuding politics, blah, blah, blah. Like, the Pope isn't Italian this time.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm not super familiar with like the good parts of Catholicism. But like there's genuine goodness in these characters who are seeking to become closer to God and to...
That's honestly kind of the tragedy of Christianity in general, is these people who are like in it to be good people and then find themselves in this quagmire.
Which I think is probably true of all major religions at this point.
Yeah.
But it was novel for me, especially because it's Renaissance Florence, and that's always interesting. Because at that point, there was no Italian state. They were all city-states or principalities or duchies or whatever. And so Florence is very much on its own, and this main character is trying to, quote-unquote, save the whole city. He wants to turn this into a city of God so that they can turn away the French when they invade, and...
Those French.
Yeah. But the farther the book goes, the less it becomes about the politics, and more about how do you save your own soul, and how do you save the souls of the people around you? What do we owe each other to bring each other closer to God? But that was the equivalent of doing something for someone you love. How do you take care of the people you love? And
interesting.
The farther into the book you go, the more different things they try. And so they try this thing and it doesn't work, and they try this thing and it doesn't work, and they're like, whatever, no idea is too bad.
Right.
And it ends with an affirmation of fellowship that I didn't see coming and that I thought was just so poignant and don't you? No.
Now I'll see it coming.
No, you won't. No, you won't. That's the beauty of this book. You won't see it coming.
Okay.
And
we'll see about that.
It did end a little abruptly, but it was a really good ending.
Okay.
Very good. Anyway.
I just think this is very interesting because I think the only thing I've read by Joe Walton, who's a pretty big name in fantasy literature, the only thing I've read by her is Tooth and Claw. Which
That's
is
the only thing many people have read.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's like one of her big Hugo winning, like that.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would think of it as somewhat silly because it's basically Pride and Prejudice, but they're all dragons.
They're all dragons, yeah. And it's a silly, premise, but, it's really good.
Yes.
It's really good.
Yes.
But, it's also very weird very because everything she writes is apparently,
she's one of those.
She's one of those. She's written at least one trilogy, but other than that, she just does what she wants.
Wow.
A lot of standalones, so she has a lot of freedom. But yeah, Tooth and Claw is also amazing.
Yeah.
And they are very different, you're right. They're very different. But Lent, I know we've talked about this before, but Lent is where Joe Walton, the author, came up with the Tiffany problem. Because Tiffany was a very common nickname in Renaissance Florence. But there are no characters named Tiffany. I didn't even see a Theodora or anything. I think she just avoided it altogether.
This is, for those who don't remember and don't want to go find that episode, it's this idea that
if you introduce a historical fact or a historical reality to your historical fiction that doesn't jive with what your modern day reader believes to be true, it will throw them out of the story and they will hate everything and they'll quit reading.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
you have that together very well. It's I don't know how to even say this.
So in this particular case where she came up with it, Tiffany is a very common nickname for women in Renaissance Florence. But if you named a character Tiffany
in a Renaissance historical fiction book,
no one would believe you would be raked over the coals. It would be the equivalent of publishing a trilogy where all the books are different sizes.
And it makes me really mad.
I know. You're
we've talked
really,
about that before.
You're really mad about this.
And
I'm just kind of
welp.
C'est la vie.
So you read Lent.
I read Lent. I finished Lent. I think I started it before we got there. But it's a chonker. Or at least compared to your little...
Well, it looks very impressive because it's a hardback.
I know.
And
it's so lovely to touch. So I read that one. I read another one of the Weather Warden books by Rachel Kane, which...
You've been enjoying.
I have been flying through up until this past week where I haven't read anything in 5 days.
Well,
but with the exception of that, I was cleaning out my room for the first time in many, many years, and which meant all of my books had to come off of my bookshelf and be put into boxes. And so I was like, okay, so I will find some old books that I don't really...
I don't think you'll like.
That I don't think I'll like all that much, that won't be worth keeping, and then I can get rid of them and make some space. And I own the first two. I know. This was...
Backfired!
It didn't backfire as bad as the Lilith St. Crow books that I owned, the first 3, and I was like, I'll just read them, get rid of them, it's fine. I ended up buying the other ones and then keeping all of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So
this time you've just been getting...
This didn't happen. So I own the first 2 books. The first one is called Ill Wind, and the second one is Heat Stroke. And the main character has weather magic, basically. And is part of this society called the Weather Wardens, where they turn away the worst of the natural disasters that impact humanity. And it's all very corporatized, and they have different field offices and stuff. And she lives in Florida, and her boss is the guy who kept, Hurricane Andrew from killing more people than it did. And so he's this big old hero legend asshole.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Summer, that was going really quick.
And then there's this whole dimension where the Weather Wardens... So there are 3 different types of... I shouldn't call them Weather Wardens. They are the Wardens. So there's Weather Wardens, there's Earth Wardens, and there's Fire.
Fire. I was gonna say
wardens.
fire.
Yeah.
Earth?
Earth, fire, and weather. And weather you can control both wind and
Ooh.
water and electricity. All the weathery stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. And so there's also this situation where
Let's call it
a situation
situation.
where the wardens, once you hit a certain like level in the corporate structure, they give you a djinn, a genie,
Yes.
a djinn, and they live in any bottle that isn't made of plastic, and they have all these rules, and like these people have to obey you, and there are certain rules. Like if you ask them something 3 times, they have to answer.
What?
Truthfully. And it's like, that's not a spoiler because it's on the back of one of the books.
Okay.
She briefly becomes a djinn, and it's quite upsetting to be someone else's thrall. And she ends up like under this like 17-year-old kid's thumb, and he puts her in like this French maid outfit.
Oh.
And like it's good that he's young and inexperienced because she can sort of manipulate him and still try to save the day, but at the same time, like he's this really gross kid who has way too much power over her.
Yeah.
Physical power. So most of this series is dealing with this long-term inequity where the djinn are slaves. They're magical slaves. And how do you get them out of that? And then how do you rebalance the world where these people with a whole lot of magic power are rightfully very angry? And the wardens, most of whom don't see them as people, are mad that they're free. It's a whole mess that takes apparently 9 books to resolve. It is a 9-book series, and I'm like 5 in or so.
Mm-hmm.
They're really good, though. It's popcorn fiction. And luckily, I didn't have to buy them all because they're all on Libby.
Yay!
So I'm
Library.
reading them on my iPad, which I don't usually like to do,
Right.
but I don't have a Kindle, so I'm making it work.
And we have a resolution kind of this year that we're renewing every month to not buy books.
It's less a resolution and more a competition.
Yes.
Because
it's more fun that
yeah,
way.
it's way more fun that way. Where whoever buys a book first loses the month. And it resets at the beginning of every month. And Gabby's doing it for money, and I was doing it to like save space, but now I'm in it for
in
both.
that I want to save money, not that I win money by winning.
Right, there's no winning.
No, there's
here.
no winning
There's
other
nothing to
than
win.
bragging, right?
Yes. So
yeah.
I am doing library books.
But I still won January.
You did, because Barnes & Noble had its pre-order sale,
Yes.
in which case I was just like,
well,
bye!
you'd planned to write
I
off
did.
February.
I thought
and then
that-
it ended up being in January.
Yeah, I thought the pre-order sale would be in February, but I had a list and I was ready for it, except for a couple books.
And I was probably only saved because I wasn't ready for it, and I wasn't willing to put in the energy to figure it out in time.
You gotta put in a little bit of energy as you think of them.
I know. I have, like, some that I have on my list, but I've just been putting them on my buy from book crawl list.
I haven't been doing that. But I did pretty well at book crawl last year.
Yeah, you did great at book crawl last year.
Like 8 books.
As
or
someone who
something.
did not do great at book crawl last year.
That
But I
was
wasn't trying
You
either.
were not trying. But I will never forget, as we were leaving Meet Cute, the freaking pile of books you came out of that store with was truly impressive.
They deserve it, okay?
They do. All our local indies do.
Yeah.
So I read the Firestorm. I read that one. And I remember I was telling you at one point, like, these are seriously popcorn fiction. You fly through them. There's no, like, deeper meaning. It is what it is.
It's what it says on the tin.
Yes. But I remember telling you, we were talking about the different relationships in the books that we were reading. And there's this one long-term, sort of, not quite, sort of tortured romantic relationship between the 2 leads in the Weather Warden books. And he's a djinn and she's a warden, so, like, they're on opposite sides of this growing divide. And then he ends up in charge of the djinn, and she's, like, one of the last people standing with any power in the wardens. There's a big old bad thing that happens. And so, like, they are on opposite sides, and their loyalties are divided, but they still are, like, deeply in love. And the thing is, they keep fighting with each other over this stuff that keeps happening. But, like, they apologize or they reconcile before parting again.
Right.
Which I really like that.
Yeah.
It's, like, it's sort of like don't go to bed angry type stuff, which I don't usually ascribe to. Sometimes you need to sleep before you can finish a fight.
Yes. Agreed.
But, like, it's very much
But from
like,
a book standpoint...
Yeah. Especially when the stakes are just always so high in all of these books. They're very, like, jet-propelled. And so, like, every time they see each other, could be the last time they see each other. So they make it right. And then they, you know, keep trying to save the world. Yeah. So I'm really enjoying that part. And then I hit the one where she loses her memory, which is always so much fun in the middle of the series. I really like those. But that's the one I
One of my favorite tropes.
Yeah, it's a good trope. So what else did I read? I read part of The Spy Master's Lady by Joanna Burke, which I'm not getting rid of it, but I'm also
not.
I'm not getting rid of it because the writing was really good.
Mm.
But
But would
like,
you reread it?
I don't know. Probably. I think it'll be one of those ones I'll keep for 10 years and then I'll pull it off the shelf and be like, do I really want this? I'll read it and then get rid of
You'll
it.
read like the first chapter or two and be like, never mind. Because I think you read the first couple chapters and you were like, this is a way to start it, I guess.
Yeah. And it got better.
Well, you set the bar.
Okay, the bar didn't start very low. But originally the bar was quite high. Like,
sure.
It
premise sounds very promising.
Yeah, it's these French spy and an English spy are in a prison together and they escape together. And then it turns out the English spy was like in France to capture her and take her back to London to be interrogated or whatever. And then it turns out it's because everyone thinks she has what's called the Albion plans, which is Napoleon drew up a plan on how to invade England. And it had all of their like armies and the number of soldiers and all of their supplies and like all sorts of very delicate information about the French armies that the English need to know to avoid an invasion.
Happening.
Yeah. But so at the same time, like, she doesn't want Napoleon to take over England because she's spent the last 10 years basically disguised as a boy on the front lines against the Prussians and everyone else that Napoleon has defeated. And she doesn't really want that to happen to anyone else. But also, she is a French woman and she is super patriotic. Her father was like one of the first revolutionaries who was executed by the nobles, before they killed Marie Antoinette. And so she was raised in the vein of a revolutionary French woman. And so she also does not want to give all this sensitive information to the English, who will use it to kill a bunch of French people.
Right.
So, and everyone thinks she has these plans. She does not physically. She burnt them. So, is this a spoiler? This is a bit of a spoiler.
Well, for them. I was like, I don't care.
She has a photographic memory.
Okay.
So, like, everyone is following her.
Does everyone know that she has a
Nobody knows she has a photographic memory. So they're all following her, waiting for her to, like, pick them out of some secret hidden place. And she just keeps going. And being like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have the plans. I've never even seen them.
What the plans?
Albion plans. What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. And no one believes it, obviously.
Right.
But, like, they can't find them either. And she's so smart, and she's really good at this, and she has this thing where she's like, no, I don't kill people. But she will, like, knock the shit out of them.
And
then leave them bleeding.
What would you call it? Not like an excuse, but kind of that trapdoor they program into, like, media when they need someone to not be a murderer. And they're like, oh, but we can very safely knock people out constantly, even though in reality it's very difficult to safely
100%,
knock someone
100%.
out.
Although that's one of the things that, like, comes up when she's trying to escape because the English guy catches her or whatever. And it's a romance, right? And it's 10 or so years old, which is, I think, the most of my problem with it. He puts her in this, like, super flimsy negligee on the assumption that she won't try to escape because she's not wearing anything, basically. And there's some weird, like, back and forth, and then he lets down his guard. He sits down on the bed next to her, and she grabs a, like, tie for her robe, wraps it around his neck, and is, like, strangling him. And he has some flashback to a battle and, like, loses it and, like, knocks her off the bed and shit, and then returns to himself or whatever, and is like, oh shit, are you okay? I didn't mean...
Are you okay? You were strangling me.
And she was like, yes, I knew it was going to be hard because it's really hard to strangle someone to unconsciousness without actually killing them, but I was going to give it a shot.
I'm glad they inserted that line. We know this strains credulity.
So there were a lot of, like, delightful moments like that.
Okay.
And there's this other spy who's just, like, they just fuck with each other all the time.
I like that.
Yeah, it was really good. So, but, like, the thing that I had that just dragged in the, probably from the 50 to 75% marks, she is set up as this, like, super spy. She is all business all the time. She knows what to do all the time. She always has a plan. Her mind is always racing to all the various possibilities. And then it's like sex melts her brain or something.
Oh boy.
It just...
Okie dokie.
It was so disappointing. And also there was like this, not dubcon thing, but like, not dubcon. Dubious consent,
Yep.
for those who don't...
aren't familiar with AO3 texts.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, it wasn't rapey, but it was, like, he was very insistent, and at one point said, I wouldn't be so insistent if I knew you weren't into it. At which point I was like... But you don't have to be that. Like, if you know she's into it, like, you can wait. Like,
Yeah. It's fine.
This doesn't have to happen till she's, like, ready for it.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's you would not enjoy that.
Nope.
And, like, the part, like, she just turns into this... She doesn't, though. It just seems like, for that quarter of a book, she turns into a shrinking violet. And, like, there's this weird, like, 3D chess game that's going on that the author feels like it's sort of fudged, you know? Like her move wasn't actually as smart or as, like...
Okay.
I mean, like, specifically, there's one moment where she's in their, like, spy headquarters as a captive in London, and she announces at dinner that she is not going to be eating or drinking anything until they let her go. So, you better start trying to convince me to release those Albion plans now. Good luck before I die, or whatever.
Mm.
And, like... She leaves the room, and then we get this whole scene where the guys, they're all men. No, there's one wife. Mostly men. Yep. And they're like, oh man, she really outplayed us. Because we're not going to force feed her or anything. That would be terrible. No, we really like her. Blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, I just couldn't quite handle it. Because this whole thing of, like, this woman being so, like, courageous and stuff, there's no point to it. She doesn't understand. We're so much nicer than that. Like, Jesus, guys.
Okay.
Like, yeah. and then she just sort of, like, puts up with it for a while. And it's portrayed that way on purpose so that, like, we are lulled into the same sort of, like, complacency that the guys are. Mm-hmm. The English guys are. And so that when she makes her escape from this basically impenetrable house, they're not ready for it. We're not ready for it. And then we go, oh, okay, she's been thinking about this the entire time.
Right.
But it didn't...
But while you don't know that...
Like, I would have appreciated...
Some sort of hint.
Some sort of hint that she wasn't just, like, obsessed with this guy and not doing anything else.
Right.
And, like, the ending was good.
Okay.
The twist was eh.
Okay.
The ending itself was good.
Okay.
And the writing itself was quite good.
Okay.
But, like, I'm not going to be reading any more of those.
Oh, there are more?
There are more. There's one... I mean, it's actually sort of interesting, where, like...
Same characters or, like, companions?
Companions.
Okay.
There's the main one, and then the next book goes way back in time to the Terror, where one of the older English spies and his wife, the woman who's there with them, meet and rescue a bunch of people and escape the guillotine and all that stuff. And then it goes forward again, where, like, the spy that she just messes with all the time.
Yeah.
He's the hero in that one, and then there's one other one, but like it jumps around in time, which I thought was very interesting. That doesn't usually happen.
Yeah, but you're not interested in reading more.
I was vaguely, but like
maybe if you're in the mood again,
I would rather finish the Weather Ward.
Yeah,
books. So like,
sounds like you're having way more fun with those.
Yes. So the writing was good, but like, I think I need to stop reading romances that are more than 10 years old.
They are kind of a die roll.
They are. Some of them are really good.
Right.
But, like, a lot of them have those, like, sensibilities where, like, the main couple don't talk to each other. Which...
Yeah, you have to either, like, be ready to put those blinders on.
Yep.
Or you just gotta not.
Yep. And it's a newish cover. The cover is from like 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not expect an older romance book.
I see.
Yeah. So, but if you look at the sequel up on Goodreads, it's very clearly was written before the current, like, cover trends.
Right.
Like it's this,
it's like Cars.
plainted,
You can tell
like
how...
like a portrait of, like, this blurry man chest and flags in the background, and it's just... And you look at that and you go, okay. I know what kind of book that will be.
Now I know what I'm getting into.
Yup. And God, I like it. The writing was really good.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't do what I wanted it to.
I'm sorry.
I know. So, but I did enjoy it enough that, like, I'm not getting rid of it.
Right.
I fully expect 10 years or so down the line, pick it up and be like, did I enjoy this? I'll just read it to get rid of it. And then I'll read it and then I'll donate it.
Check back in 10 years,
Yeah, right.
ITBR listener, and see what Smack decides to do.
Is that 2034?
Woo!
That's a long time.
We're gonna be friends for so
Forever!
long! Yay!
I actually can't see past the next week and a half. So,
Well.
10 years seems like a lot.
Wow.
So, Weather Wardens, Spy Master's Lady, and Lent.
Yay, reading retreat!
God, it was so nice. It was like the last year when we went, it had snowed but was not currently snowing, and that was pretty great. But, like, there's nothing quite like reading in front of a fire with so many blankets.
When it's cold and rainy outside.
Yep, and you can hear it all.
Yeah.
Although I will say, this place had some interesting dimensions.
Yes. This didn't occur to
There
us
were
last trip.
stairs everywhere.
But this trip, yeah, there are stairs everywhere.
Like, you go up 2 steps, you go up to the second floor,
Mm-hmm.
to the room that we rented.
And I'm sure it's been replanned to accommodate this whole
And, like,
lodge
they
thing.
probably had to, like, add bathrooms when it turned into a commercial
Lodge thing.
property.
Sure.
But so, like, you go up, you park in this really steep driveway, and then there are, like, 3 steps up, and then a landing, and another 2 steps, and then outside there are, like, cats everywhere,
Yes.
too. So you have to
They're
not...
constantly trying to trip you.
And then it's 3 more steps up to the front door, and then up a
normal staircase to the second floor.
And then you turn and go up 2 more stairs to open our door, and you walk in, and it's all flat. But to go to the bathroom, you have to walk back down those 2 steps. But, like, there's a wall. So, like, it's...
And they're weird recesses.
Yeah. And so, like, on the far side of the shower insert, it's a bathroom shower combo. But, like, if you're standing facing away from the spray, you can see a door outline. I'm pretty sure it's a door because it's the right, like, height and depth. But, like...
For a dead body!
For a door!
For a dead body!
and so, like... And there are, like, gables everywhere.
Yes.
With accordingly weird ceilings.
Yes.
And this place is so weird that I wanted to take, like, a measuring tape to it all. To be like,
where can there be dead bodies? / treasure.
Whatever we decided on.
There were squeaky enough floorboards that I thought it seemed like the type of place.
I, at the end of December, it's stuck with me this long, read a horror novel where there are bodies where there should not be bodies.
You should very quickly plug this, even though you can't talk about it.
It's called From Below by Darcy Coates, and it's fucking terrifying. Although, to be fair, I knew this was going to be a problem, but, like, I started reading a horror novel in a unfamiliar bedroom at 10:30 at night, and I was like, this will be fine. I'll read 50 pages. I'll be asleep by midnight. It was, like, 3 a.m, and I was terrified of moving. I had to sleep with my, like, reading light on as a nightlight. I was so scared.
I'm gonna make sure this is on my Halloween
It was
list.
so good. But there were definitely bodies where there shouldn't be. And it's all about, like, a sunken shipwreck that these modern day divers are filming a documentary for.
Right.
And every time they go down, they introduce a little more air back into the ecosystem, because it's in this bay between Sweden and Finland that is like a real place where it's just like an abnormally low oxygen count. So there's no like bacteria, there are no fish, there's nothing happening. But once you start introducing oxygen back into this shipwreck, everything that's down there starts coming back to life. And I could not handle it. I could not handle it. It was so good. And I was so lucky to finish reading it while my brother and his girlfriend were here, because my brother would get high every night and just let me talk at him for like an hour and a half. And I just vomited everything this book was all over. And he just took it. And at the end he was like, wow, well now I don't have to read it.
Incorrect.
He doesn't read fiction.
I
know, I can't believe we're related.
So an important end note to all of this is we had decided that the room hid dead bodies and or treasure. And then we were going to bed that second night. And we looked up into one of these weird recesses at the very, 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 very high ceilings. Like unreachable ceilings. And Smack goes, is that a spider?
And it was this weird, like, black blob.
Yes. It was too large to be a spider.
Yeah. So we were like...
But the longer you stared at it, the more you realized it had... You're pretty sure it had legs like a spider.
Like, I figured it was, like, dirt with, like, weird...
Right. Like...
thing coming off the
like
main
a weird
blob.
clump of
like
something.
Some kind of, like, cobweb, whatever. But on our last morning, I woke up and it was gone.
So...
I was very glad that was our last morning.
But truly, outside of tarantulas, the largest spider I've ever seen.
And it wasn't a tarantula.
It was not a tarantula. No.
And I still think about that. And then I very deliberately go, I'm not thinking about this right now. And I only said that last night, is that a spider? Because I'd been looking at it for like 2 days and it hadn't moved.
Oh, you noticed it at the beginning.
Yeah. And I'd been like keeping an eye on it and nothing, it hadn't moved at all. And then last morning, it didn't just move, it was gone. I could not have handled another night. I just couldn't have.
Not knowing where it was. Yeah. Amazing.
Such a weird place.
Yeah.
That's like half the fun,
but
though.
love going there, yeah.
It is such a weird place. Yeah. Tucker Peak Lodge, if anyone is interested.
Yes.
And or in
the area. Yeah.
Highly recommend it.
And while you're in Julian, hit up the California Wolf Center.
Yeah.
And give them money.
They have a shop on Main Street. Also, you can like go see wolves.
Yeah.
Like real wolves.
Yeah.
Which is pretty great. Especially in the winter, because they have those pretty winter coats.
Yeah.
That's nice. Also, if you go around the holidays, it's a lot of fun because everybody, like, there are a bunch of people who show up with like their young children, and you go out to see the wolves, and the children all come up to the front gate, and they want to see the wolves, and everybody lets them in front because they're small. And the wolves find these like prey-sized creatures very interesting, and so they all come out to the fence. Yeah,
order.
Exactly. Which is just so delightful.
I think they do that at is it SeaWorld? Some aquarium I was at was like, if anyone has children, have them come to the front because the animals are more likely to engage in like play with the like higher pitched.
Oh, interesting.
Creatures. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little different from the wolves, but still very cool.
Maybe, or it's the same.
Maybe it is the same. Maybe that's just what they tell parents.
Yeah. They want to be their friends.
They want to play with your kids.
Yeah. So that was a reading.
That was a reading retreat.
So here's hoping you too can find a wonderful magical place.
It takes
for
a little
reading
planning.
Retreat. It
but
does.
Like,
so worth it.
Fully recommend it.
Cash in those points that you've been sitting on.
Thanks for listening. This has been another episode of Infinite TBR.
You can find us online at infinitetbr.com. You can email us at itbrshelf@gmail.com. And we're also on Instagram at
Infinite TBR Podcast.
And individually on Instagram
At Gabalodon, which is like Megalodon, but with Gab in the front of it.
and at what_Smack said, because Instagram locked me out of at what Smack said. So
here we are.
Here we are. See you next time.